Hey everybody, let me know if you guys can hear me okay and see my screen. All right, I'm going to give it just one more minute and let people join us. And I do have my chat open, so if anyone wants to tell us where you're calling in from, let us know. And we're just going to get started in 1 or 2 minutes. All right, so yeah, let us know in the chat where you guys are all located. We'd love to hear from you. And just going to give it another 30 seconds and just see who else joins us. And we will get going. All right. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining. I'm sure we'll have people joining us in a few extra minutes. Thanks so much for chiming in on where you guys are. I am in New York City, and we are going to talk about developing a strategic plan for your job search. So I'm going to just dive right in and tell you a little bit about sort of who I am. So I started out in the world of financial services. I worked at Goldman Sachs and then Bridgewater. And from there, I was really coaching people on the side of my job for years, and eventually got coaching training and certified through NYU and then the ICF. I did a tech MBA program through NYU Stern, and I've done career coaching through a variety of organizations such as the Flatiron School, Columbia University, Project Activate, and also WeWork. I have been building my company for about 4.5 years, and we build digital tools to help professionals be very intentional with any and all career decision that they're making. So we're going to dive in, and I'm happy to talk about anything in my background if it is helpful at any point. So today we are going to talk about how to divide your time wisely in your job search, how to set a strategy, how to really leverage career clarity to your advantage and what to do before your job search. Just talking about 2 different approaches while you're doing your active formal job search, and really an iterative approach to really learn and make sure you're not sort of just doing the same thing every single day. And we're also going to touch on the accountability as well as some common pitfalls. And I am open to any questions at any time, so feel free to write into the chat. So setting goals. This is super important, right? Knowing what the different activities are that you can or should be doing throughout your job search, and really knowing how much time to spend in each of those areas, super key, right? I always come back to time management, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of just doing online applications and sort of drowning in a rabbit hole of doing these online job boards. But there's so much more that you really can and should be doing to make sure that you are spending your time wisely throughout your job search. So first and foremost, I like to talk about exploration, learning, and research, right? So really getting clear on which role, which industry, and which environment is the best fit. And there's a lot more we will talk about as it relates to how to go about career exploration. But if you are spending, it's not just about like actively pursuing things. It's really also about understanding what your options are, understanding your direction, getting clear and confident about your direction. That is going to help so much in terms of being effective and efficient with your job search. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to do that later on. 50% of your time minimum should be networking, right? And there's so much more we can talk about with how to network effectively. But really, statistically, most jobs are landed through networking. So it's really important to understand how to network effectively, how to get your foot in the door, how to reach the right people, what to say to them, all that, right? Again, 50% of your time minimum. And so the way to do that, and again, why time is so important, is because if you don't protect that time and carve out that time for networking, it's very easy to just sort of, like I said, get lost in the online job boards. So when you protect that time for networking and you give yourself an hour or two, it's really going to sort of prompt you to say, how can I be creative with what to be doing during this networking time? It's going to sort of prompt you and almost force you to say, who else can I reach out to? Who else can I talk to, right? So that's kind of why it all comes back to time management. 10% job boards, right? Maybe maximum 20%, but really no more than that. Maybe it depends on how much total time you have. But I really just don't want you to feel like 80, 90, 100% of your time is spent in the online job boards. It is just one component. And while it should be the thing that works, it's just unfortunately not always the thing that works, right? So we've got to be doing other things so that you are a human candidate and not just an online application. Skill development. This is a really interesting and important part of your job search. So doing some sort of project, whether it's a self-driven project, a pro bono project, a side gig, it could be any format of learning, a course, a certification. When you are exploring, first of all, what you want to be learning, it's going to help you figure out what job you even want, but it's also going to help your mindset to be positive, creative, confident, remind you of your value during your job search. This is especially important if you are unemployed. And reflection and iteration. We're going to talk a lot about how to do that. We're going to talk a lot about how to reflect and how to iterate. So it's really important to make sure that you're thinking at least once a week. Take the time to ask yourself, how are you doing? What's going well? What's not going well? What do I need to do better or differently, right? We can't just keep plugging away heads down. All right. All right. So what else do we got? So this is another way to show how to set your goals. So if you look at the left side, it's really showing you what are the different activities. And these are very similar to what we just spoke about. If I were to tell you like the must-have versus the nice-to-have, networking and online applications are obviously a must-have. Joining webinars and online events is a really great additional way to meet other participants, meet the panelists, see who's presenting, learn about the companies that are presenting, learn about the industry. So it's a great way to both network and learn at the same time. And you never know who you may meet there. Research, like we mentioned, learning, right? Experiential learning, skill development, as well as thought leadership and personal branding, getting your voice out there, being active on LinkedIn, right? That's another place that somebody can see you and hear from you and meet you. And in addition to meeting you, they're going to see that you really have the knowledge and skills and capabilities to do this job, because maybe you'll be writing about it or commenting. So if you notice, we have to understand what to do, how important it is, and then try to set goals as to how much you're going to be doing that each week, right? So how much are you going to be doing networking? How much are you going to be doing those online applications? How many events do you want to join? How much time do you want to spend in all of these other different places and spaces and activities, right? So the point is having a little bit of variety and balancing your activities across different things, but also setting goals, because volume is key. Networking in terms of how many people are you going to meet, right? It's not just about, oh, let me do 10 applications a week. How many people can you meet per week? That's another key component. So really setting goals as it relates to each activity in order to guide your weekly efforts. So before you job search, really, we want to think about the career exploration process. I don't want you to go into any job search until you feel crystal clear about your direction, because it's just going to make your job search longer and more confusing. So what is career exploration? It is a process that is distinct from and a precursor to the job search. It is a series of steps of learning and reflection in order to compare and contrast and clarify which path is the best fit for you. If you still have options for roles or industries, it means you need to do more learning or more reflection or both, right? So if you're looking into different roles, if you're looking into different industries, if you're not sure what the best fit is for you, why would the interviewer be clear on that either, right? So really get to the point of understanding your best fit direction. As we talked about, it's going to make it easier for you to figure out, who should I talk to? How do I reach those people quickly? How do I make sure my interview is super, super, super compelling? And how do I make sure I'm going to actually enjoy this next job and feel fulfilled and feel confident that this next direction is the best fit for me? So that is why career exploration is super important. So I know this slide is a little busy, but we're going to talk very quickly about what does it mean to set a strategy. So if you look, there's target roles and there's target companies, okay? Now, if you just look at the left side for a second, it's really going to help you to think about, are you going to be looking into roles that are feasible? Are you going to look into roles that are sort of a balance of being feasible, but a little bit more in line with what it is that you want? Or are you going to be looking into roles that you know you want, even if it's a stretch? Or are you going to look into jobs you can nail tomorrow, but you probably wouldn't like it? And so you have to ask yourself, how much time are you going to spend in each of these buckets? If you are trying to make a career pivot, right? The reason it's a strategy is because it comes down to, how quickly do you need to land a job? If you need to land a job quickly, it means that you will really be looking into the job titles of what you've held in the past. And if you have time on your side and you're really trying to optimize for landing the best fit role, that's where you would say, you know what, no matter what amount of time it takes me, then I really want to just go after the roles that I really, really want, right? This is where it's a strategy. And then when you think about the companies, it's the same type of thing. You want to think about like what's ideal, but might be a stretch, what's feasible, and what's attainable. And you want to think about the industry. You want to think about the size of those organizations. You want to think about if they're what location or if they're remote. And you really want to set your target companies. Does this all make sense so far? Where can I find the recording later? Good question. I will have this recording and I will probably put it up on our YouTube account. So if you go to our website, and I'll put it in here, our website has our link, our YouTube, and we will put it up there. All right. So what are the two approaches? Okay. You've got strategy one, apply online and then find a networking connection to land a call. Do you know someone who works there? Do you know someone that may know someone that works there? Do you have a connection at your alumni? And make sure you know how to use your alumni page on LinkedIn. Or is it just a cold connection, either with somebody who works on the team or a HR recruiter person at that company? You want to get that informational call, and ideally that informational networking call would lead into an interview, ideally. Strategy two, pick your target companies, land an informational call with at least one person in each of those companies, and then see if they have an open role. Oftentimes there are open roles that are not yet posted online. So they may say something like, oh yeah, we're going to open that up in a few weeks, or no, we don't have anything right now, or yeah, we do, or whatever they may say. So if they have a role, try to get that referral to the next person, whoever the hiring manager is, or get to that interview process. Or if there's a no, oh, maybe we're not hiring right now, ask for another introduction. You can say, is there anyone else in your personal or professional network that you wouldn't mind introducing me to? After that networking call, they'll have learned so much about you and they may be able to make a really good introduction, right? Sometimes it's sort of like one person introduces you to the next and that person introduces you to the next. And sometimes that third person is the one with the job, right? So these are two different approaches you can take. So reflecting, measuring, and iterating. This is so important because we don't want you to just be doing the same thing week over week. So after each networking call that you had, what interested you? What didn't interest you? What didn't interest you? And what is your level of interest? You might be learning during that networking call about the role, and you may realize maybe that role isn't the right fit for me. Maybe that industry isn't the right fit for me. So be iterative with it, right? So here are some additional questions, right? Each week, at least once a week, what's going well? What's not going well? What did you learn about the roles and industries? You could even rank the options for roles and industries in order from like sort of most interested to least interested, or you can give them a 1 to 10 ranking. And how can you improve your process for the next week? You want to really consider your mindset, your accountability, and your practical strategy. Those 3 components are all important keys to your success. You also want to quantitatively measure. So you want to ask yourself, how many people am I reaching out to? How many people am I messaging either on email or LinkedIn? Because by the way, I personally think email is a better place to actually do that outreach than LinkedIn message. You want to see how many people you ask either for a call or how many people you ask for an introduction. How much outreach have you done based on the companies that you've applied to? And how many responses and how many calls and how many interviews, right? So you really need to measure. And the reason is because it's a funnel, right? If you are sort of feeling like there's a funnel break at any point in the process, it's going to tell you a lot about how you're doing and where you need to improve. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the job funnel. The top of the funnel, if anyone works in the world of marketing, you're familiar with funnels, right? So the top of the funnel is how someone's going to meet you, right? Networking, events, either personal branding, or maybe you're doing some sort of side gig. How is somebody going to meet you? There's different ways that you can get in front of them. And remember, you are a person that has to meet another person, right? They're going to hire a person. They're not going to hire an online application. So how can you get in front of people and meet people? Ideally, then there's some outreach where you hopefully ask that person for a call. And of course, that leads to responses. If you're not getting responses, where are you reaching out? What are you asking and saying? And I'll add a third component, which is who are you reaching out to? Is it warm connections or cold connections, right? So where you're reaching out, what you're saying, how you're phrasing it, and what type of connection it is, that's going to help you to see whether you're going to get those responses. If you're getting the responses but not the calls, you're probably just not doing a good job in scheduling without friction, right? If you're getting the calls to lead to, if you're not getting the calls to lead into an interview, are you asking for referrals? Are you asking for introductions? Are you going after the wrong level or type of role? How are you letting that one call lead into the next step? Are you following up, right? And then of course, if you're moving to the second or third final rounds, but you're not getting to the offer stage, you would have to ask yourself, is it the right level of role? Or are you really explaining yourself clearly and in a compelling way? And you might want to do mock interviews at that point with a career coach. And that's really, again, it depends on where you feel like you're struggling in the funnel in order to know what to do to improve. So accountability, this is such a key to your success, right? Keeping on top of things, setting goals per day or per week and measuring your progress. Leverage co-working to your advantage. This is a tip, right? If there's a peer who's, job searching as well, or if you have, a community like, some of my clients will co-work together, or even using a tool like FocusMate, right? Time boxing is really, really, really helpful, right? Because we talked about it's so easy to get into that rabbit hole of just applying, but really plan your time. Did you plan your day or did you plan your week as it relates to which activities you're going to do in that job search? Of course, finding the internal motivation, there's really no replacement for that, right? So what actually is motivating you? What roles and industries are genuinely interesting to you? There's truly no replacement for that, what that will do for your drive. And, as you can see, letting your interests drive your effort. But getting a peer, a mentor, or a coach to help you stay on top of things is something else that's really, really, can be very helpful if you've been in job search for a while, if you could use a little guidance. You don't have to be there doing it all by yourself, right? That's the key. So top 3 strategies for smart job searching. Number 1, are you being transactional, or are you considering who you want to talk to about what? So being transactional means you're checking the box, you're just applying, you're doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, versus think about networking and interviews as a conversation. Who do you want to talk to? What problems do you want to talk about, right? What problems do you want to solve and how do you want to solve them? Those calls, those meetings, those conversations are going to be talking about the work. And I always say those conversations are a mirror into the job that you may have. So if you're not enjoying that networking and those interviews, then it might not be the right direction. Are you plugging away heads down, or are you reflecting on how it's going and iterating your strategy, right? We need to make sure you're not just doing the same thing week over week. So reflect and see what you can do better or differently each week, making small changes week over week. And are you clear in your direction, or are you applying to a multitude of things? If you are applying to a multitude of things, I can guarantee it's going to overwhelm and confuse you and your interviewer. If you have different options, take a step back and try to compare and contrast and prioritize and learn and reflect on which direction is the best fit for you. So how to think about a work opportunity. I'm going to give you a 3-part framework to think about your role, right? So there's really 3 components. I'll show you all 3, and I'll show you the words that we typically use. So we typically talk about a role, but a role in the end of the day is the function that you play. It's the style of the work. It's your affinities, your tendencies, what you're natural at, what you're great at, what you enjoy doing, right? Reflecting on the role separately from the industry. So I always say the industry is kind of like the content. For example, if you're a product manager, if you're a designer, if you're an engineer, if you're a research analyst, if you're whatever your job is, the style of the work is the function. But the nature of the content of what it is that you're building or researching or analyzing or whatever work you're doing, that's the industry. So the industry is the mission and the purpose. It's sort of like, what are you guys building? Why are you here? What is the area of innovation? What problem are you solving? That's the different than the role that you play. So separate those 2 things. And then the 3rd component is the environment. What's the culture? What does it look and feel like? What is it physically like? What are the people like? The values, the personality? Is it hybrid? Is it remote? What's the bells and whistles, right? What are the hours, the flexibility, any and all things that you need out of that environment? So this is a 3-part framework you can use to continue to reflect on what it is you want next and what would be best suited for you in terms of your direction. So I'm going to talk very quickly about what is career exploration. So if you were to pursue the process of trying to really crystallize your ideal direction, I'm going to walk through the steps of how to do that. So first and foremost, you want to get committed. You want to ask yourself, am I in a moment where I actually need to clarify my direction? And if that's the case, agreeing to yourself and committing to that process is part of it, because it is a process, right? Then you want to reflect on your interests. And that relates to the prior slide. The function, the content, and the environment. You really want to flesh out your reflections on what you really want in each of those buckets. We actually have an 80+ question career assessment if that's interesting to you to reflect on what it is that you want, but you can also just do that on your own as much as you can. From there, that's when you want to narrow in your options. And you might already have options on your radar. So think about, what are my options for roles? What are my options for industries? Then you want to go through a process of what I call learning. You want to learn and understand what each of the roles are deeply and accurately. When you understand each of the roles, that's when you can effectively compare, contrast, prioritize, and figure out which one of those roles and which one of those industries is the best fit. It's an iterative process. So for example, you could leverage networking with professionals who work in those roles. And then what you want to do is, over on a weekly basis, you synthesize your learnings and you say, what did I learn about these roles? You might be surprised. There's roles you thought you could have liked, and really once you learned about it, maybe it isn't a fit. And maybe there's certain roles you want to learn more about. So you take this iterative approach to say, let me lean in closer and dive deeper to the roles I do want to learn about, and let me get rid of the roles that aren't really a fit. So the learning and the reflection is really what leads you to the place of feeling clear in your direction. From there, that's really when you should move into the job search. And of course, that's what leads you to the job fulfillment. Sorry, very loud here in New York City. So remember, if you still have options on your radar, it means to do more learning and or more reflection, okay? What else? So I kind of talked about this, but if your career search isn't fun, your job won't be either. So, I know job search is a job and it's work and it's effort, but remember, if you're not really enjoying those conversations, use that to reflect and figure out maybe I need to pivot what it is that I'm looking into, either roles or industries or environments. So what do? We are a company that guides you through all of these components: career exploration, personal branding, upskilling, job searching, all of that. And we teach you how to do that well, how to track your work, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it, where to do it. And we are really here to wake up the world to remember that you can and should find a job you love, and making sure that every career professional has support at every juncture in their journey. So feel free, get in touch. I always offer a free one-on-one initial coaching call. You can use this link to find time with me. But I'm happy to stay on and hang out. If anyone has questions, feel free to unmute, or you could write in the chat, and I would be happy to answer any and all career questions that you have.
Hi, Rachel. I have a question. This is Myra. Can you hear me?
Anyone have a question for me? If not,
Did you hear
okay.
someone?
Feel free to get in touch. I'm happy to hang out here for a few minutes. If anyone has a
Can you hear me?
I would be very happy to chat about any topic you want to hear more about. Yes, Catherine, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. Someone else was trying to come
does,
off
yes.
Yeah,
Myra, I hope you're saying, I'm saying your name correctly. But feel free to unmute and let us know your question.
Okay, can you hear me? I don't think she can hear me.
Myra, can you hear me okay? I'm happy to answer your question. I don't, you can hear me. Uh-oh.
I
All right.
hear you, but you cannot
into the chat. We must be having some audio issues.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear me, but
let me know if you want to type your question, and I'd be happy to answer it. In the meantime, if anyone else has another question, let me know. And Myra, I'll be looking at the chat, so feel free to message it. Yes, this is being recorded, Catherine. Yes, Catherine, I'm going to put this on our YouTube link. So if you just go to our website, and our YouTube is linked there in the footer of our website, and you will be able to find that link. Is it more effective to contact directly? I have read mixed opinions. And when you say contact directly, you mean to recruiters. So it's a good question. Again, I'm a big fan of just variety. So I like to think about, do you know someone that works at that company? Do you know someone that might know somebody, right? LinkedIn has a way of really checking mutual connections, but I would be open-minded. You don't assume that you know who your network may know. So be open-ended. Ask your family, your friends, your acquaintances, past colleagues, anyone you know, see who they may know. Try to get introductions as much as humanly possible. What else? You can also check your alumni network on LinkedIn. Every university has an alumni page on LinkedIn, and it's a really powerful tool. You never know if you have an alumni that works at that company, and that's a warm connection. Worst case scenario, you can also cold outreach to somebody who works on the team that you want to work at and really ask to learn from them. And then last resort would be to reach out to recruiters. So it's one of the many things you could do. I just wouldn't say to solely rely on that. And what format do you recommend for resumes, PDF, Word documents, or websites? So in terms of resumes, Word or PDF is usually fine. Most sort of ATS can pick up either format. A website is good if you're like in a designer role or something where you need like a portfolio. But again, I just wouldn't rely so much on those online applications. So as much as it's important to know like what format works with ATS, what I would say is if you're emailing the resume, PDF is definitely the way to go there. How does a company view NAFTA professional visa for Canadians? Let me know what you mean by that. I guess what I think you're asking is, are you in Canada currently, or are you trying to say that you are in the US trying to work there, or vice versa? I might need some clarity from you. But bottom line is, with any visa, situation, it's often tough to make it happen, right? But what I like to do personally is use learning to my advantage. So whichever visa you're on, trying to find professionals who have, you know, found work wherever it is you're looking for work with that same visa, because sometimes it's a matter of just understanding which companies are actually willing to sponsor certain types of professionals. And sometimes there's just like a learning component to actually understand which companies are willing to really go through that process, right? Yeah, so yeah, if you're looking to work in the US, that's again, same response on trying to, usually the bigger companies just have a little bit more bandwidth to try to sponsor and, you know, make that visa process happen, but try to meet people who have, you know, found work here and understanding which companies have been prone to be open to that process. Any other questions I can answer?
Hey, question for you. How do you leverage your second connections on LinkedIn to ask for an
Lisa,
informational
did you have a question? I know you unmuted.
Or what else? Are you able to hear me okay? Hey there, can you hear me okay?
Well, I hope this was helpful, guys, and stay in touch. Oh, someone else is speaking. Now, you know what the issue was? It was my volume. Catherine, thank you for that. Sorry, Kita, were you asking a question?
Yeah, I was asking on LinkedIn, how do you leverage your second connection to ask for an introduction to someone who works at a company you may be interested in? What would that intro message look like?
So good question. I would say something along the lines of like, well, first of all, I'm assuming you're connecting or asking somebody that you know to see who they, like, if they could connect their connection. So you would basically, again, assuming this person is someone that you know, you would say something like, hi, you know, whoever, Jennifer, you know, I saw that you were connected with Bob, and I'm really looking to learn from people who are in these types of roles and these types of companies and really understand more about. I like to insert like 2 or 3 or 4 topic areas that you would want to ask about. It shows that you're prepared and that you would use their time wisely. So you would say, I would love to learn, you know, from them about A, B, C, and D. Would you be willing to introduce me? Is that somebody that you know? Is that somebody that you're willing, you know, close enough to try to facilitate an introduction for me? I'd really appreciate it. Let me know. Pretty brief, concise, specific, authentic. You don't need to overcomplicate it. But again, I like to focus on the learning element and focus on, again, what you would learn from that person. I think those are really compelling ways to try to get someone to help you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yes, awesome. So I will absolutely post my contact stuff here. So basically, this is the link for a call with me as well as our website. In terms of contact, like, you know, on our website, our email is linked there. So you're welcome to email me as well. But probably the easiest thing would just be to set up a chat if you would be interested in me hearing more about what you've got going on with the with your career and how I can help. Call probably best, but happy to put the email here as well if that's something that feels better for you. Yeah, any other questions I can answer? All right. Well, thanks so much for joining. I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you guys soon.